In the day's other news, President Biden announced that the federal government has bought another 200 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines. But he acknowledged his administration is still playing catch-up. The president spoke at the National Institutes of Health outside Washington, and he blamed President Trump for doing little to lay the groundwork.
He didn't order enough vaccines. He didn't mobilize enough people to administer the shots. He didn't set up federal vaccine centers where eligible people could go and get their shots. When I became president 3 weeks ago, America had no plan to vaccinate most of the country. It was a big mess. It's going to take time to fix, to be blunt with you.
President Biden said that he now has hopes to have enough vaccine to cover 300 million Americans by the end of July. Meanwhile, schools in Chicago began returning to in-person learning today. Mayor Lori Lightfoot visited classrooms and said that the city's public schools worked hard to address teachers' concerns about safety.
We absolutely understood that. And the $100 million that CPS has invested to open up schools and all the other mitigation efforts that we put forward, giving accommodations to as many people as we possibly could, that was all about recognizing teachers and other people in the school community's concerns.
The reopening began with pre-kindergarten and special education students. President Biden warned today that the U.S. must rebuild its transportation systems from rail to roads to compete with China. He said, quote, "If we don't get moving, they're going to eat our lunch." The president talked up his infrastructure plans with U.S. senators and discussed his 2-hour phone call last night with China's President Xi Jinping. In Afghanistan, gunmen kill 5 more policemen today in a growing wave of violence. The victims were escorting a United Nations convoy east of Kabul. No one claimed responsibility. But as we reported on the NewsHour, violence has spiked as peace talks with the Taliban have stalled. Fresh protests gripped Myanmar's largest cities in a 6th day of outrage over the military takeover. Thousands of people, including ethnic minorities, lined the streets with banners and flags. The general who led the coup said the protests have to end to stop the spread of the coronavirus.
People are continuing to assemble in public areas at present. It is urgent to avoid such gatherings that can increase the rate of COVID-19 infections. It is also essential to accelerate the pace of tests to contain the virus.
Hundreds of protesters rallied outside China's embassy in Myanmar. They accused Beijing of backing the junta despite Chinese denials. Back in this country, a massive pileup on an icy interstate in Texas killed at least 6 people and injured at least 65 more. Police said more than 130 vehicles crashed into each other on I-35 near Fort Worth. A winter storm had coated the area in freezing rain and sleet. In economic news, another 793,000 Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. That was down slightly from the previous week, but it points to continued layoffs due to the pandemic. On Wall Street, stocks made little or no headway again. The Dow Jones Industrial Average lost 7 points to close at 31,430. The Nasdaq rose 53 points, and the S&P 500 added 6. There is word that the legendary jazz pianist Chick Corea has died. His website says that he passed away on Tuesday after suffering a rare form of cancer. Corea was renowned for his avant-garde approach, and over his long career, he won 23 Grammy Awards, the most for any jazz artist. Chick Corea was 79 years old. And a French nun, Sister Andrée, turned 117 today after surviving COVID-19 with hardly any symptoms. The sister, who is blind now, celebrated with a prayer and her favorite dessert, baked Alaska, at her retirement home in southern France. Sister Andrée also survived the Great Flu pandemic a century ago. She is believed to be the world's 2nd oldest person. Bless her heart. Still to come on the NewsHour, democracy remains elusive in the Middle East a decade after the Arab Spring uprisings. And an Afghan Air Force pilot searches for a new life in the U.S. amid deteriorating security for his family.
This is the PBS NewsHour from WETA Studios in Washington and in the West from the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State University.